Everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Swansea Public Service Board. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. Alison, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies today from Howell Manley and Narissa Vaughan.
Okay, thank you. And the second item on the agenda is any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest. No one's indicated any, and I can't see anyone indicating now. So we'll move on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Firstly, is everybody happy that they're accurate and a true record? Okay, great. Thank you for that. We'll go to the item public question time. I don't believe we've had any questions from the public, Alison.
No, Chair, we haven't.
Okay, thank you. And so we will go then to the 2023-24 draft annual report, and I'll hand over to Ness Young to take us through this. And then I'll go to the leads for each step as well. Ness, is there anything you wanted to add before we go to the step leads?
No, thanks, Andrea. Happy to go straight in.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ness. So the first step is transforming early years services across Swansea. So Karen Stapleton is with us this afternoon from the Swansea Bay University Health Board. So Karen, over to you for this step for an update, please.
Thanks, Chair. This is an update on end of 24, isn't it? Last quarter.
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks. So in our action plan, we had 4 or 5 areas of action, 2 of which have been completed by the end of the year, which are green. That was about the strategic leadership of the programme and getting the terms of reference for our regional integration board up to date, and those both have been completed. There was a couple of areas which were amber. One was around our performance measures. So this was based on the Welsh Government Pathfinder work. We've done a big deep dive into the outcomes of that work. That work, I think I reported last time, was stopped quite abruptly by Welsh Government. We thought the Pathfinder work was going on into next year, but that money stopped as at the end of March. But the work we've done on that will be moving over into next year and informing our work programme for next year. So that will be completed. And the other area that was recorded as amber was around developing our regional strategic principles that we can sign up to across the region. So that's Neath, Port Talbot, Swansea and the Health Board. Those have been drafted, and you'll see that when we come on to the action plan for next year, a key focus for next year is getting those principles now signed off and taken through the organisations. So we've got a joined up regional strategic direction for early youth integration. So that'll be in my update when we come to a further agenda item, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So we'll go on then to step 2, which is the building on Swansea as a human rights city. Ness, I believe you're leading us on this item.
Yes, Chair, thank you. So in terms of the Q4 update, I can inform the committee that the Council has approved a human rights and strategic equality plan for Swansea Council for 2024 to 2028. And work is ongoing to identify the actions that underpin that plan. And so the second element, the second action on that step was around creating a partnership forum, a stakeholder forum, and that work is also ongoing, and a meeting will be arranged for that group in this new financial year.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ness. So that takes us on then to step 3, which is working towards Swansea's net zero target and nature recovery. I think Howell is leading on this item. Is Howell with us today?
No, he's not, Andrea, and he hasn't sent me any notes to disclose with you all, so my apologies on that.
No problem. Thank you, Lester. Okay, so we'll move on then to step 4, which is making Swansea safer, more cohesive and prosperous. So this is over to Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service. Peter, are you taking this item?
I am, yes, thank you, Chair. Just so you know that all of the actions for 23-24 plan have been concluded and delivered upon, which focused in around the community safety village in Swansea city centre back in June. There was then a Mid West Wales hosted event, Walking in Our Shoes, which was held at our Earlswood facility. That was back in October, and then concluded with a safeguarding multi-agency event, which was held in the stadium back in November. So all actions complete.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. That's good news. So we'll go to step 3, developing Swansea's integrated cultural offer. And we have Mark Wade with us this afternoon on this item.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, reference to the progress made in relation to the integrated cultural offer for Swansea. Very much supported and funded by the council's own resources, but various other partners as well, including, importantly, use of shared prosperity funding under the culture and tourism anchor. This has really helped the staff team to be bolstered this year in terms of pulling together a creative network and expanding collaboration opportunities, as well as some external support which has been brought in to help develop and deliver a cultural strategy. Sectoral analysis report has been completed as well to understand the needs of our creative and cultural sectors, which are broad and diverse. And that very much helps with the community well-being and economic prosperity goals that we all have. Tourism and marketing has been a big focus with appointments to that team as well, aiming to promote the diversity of our offer and an all-round offer to residents of Swansea within a 90-minute drive time, as well as a music officer coming in to create opportunities to perform at major events across Swansea. Partnership agreement between Swansea Council and Sport Wales is an important step forward this year that helps promote our creative active Swansea programs and specifically achieving specific outcomes around that sport development and community development work, as well as lifelong learning and skills. And very much the assessment to date demonstrates that all targets within the plan have or will be delivered, and some actually exceeding targets this year as well. So very much a good practice guide there, and good news story as well, including the Us Girls project, which has helped expand female engagement in sport. Various examples given in the report of ongoing projects, including arts and culture, as well as things like skate and other areas there as well, which are available within the report for anyone who is reading through it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. So that takes us to steps. If I take the next 3 steps together, steps 6, 7 and 8, which I know Ness and Richard Rowlands are leading on. So Ness, do you want to take us through the updates on these 3?
Is Richard with us?
I don't think he's joined us. I can't see him on our list.
Okay, in that case, yes. So bear with me just 2 seconds. I had it up in front of me just then and now I've lost it. It's always the way, isn't it? So in terms of steps 4 to 6, these are very much to do with the sort of governance arrangements for the Public Service Board, and they relate to the sort of governance landscape. And work has been taking place this year to map out the governance landscape of all of the different partnerships across the Swansea Bay region. And to see how they fit together, whether there are gaps, opportunities for greater collaboration, etc. And so that work has been collected and gathered, including things like terms of reference, meeting frequencies, membership, and that enables us to identify opportunities, as I say, for us to engage with other partnership leaders. So the next steps is for you, Andrea, as chair, to discuss the findings of that work with some of the other partnership chairs. The next step was around improving data quality and accessibility across the Swansea Bay region. And so we have worked with the Regional Partnership Board, Neath Talbot, and the other and PSB partners within a regional data group. And the purpose of this step was to identify gaps and opportunities for data sharing, particularly looking at wellbeing assessments and population needs assessments, which we'll need to be doing again in a short period of time. And so the group has focused on all of the different data gathered by those different members of the group to identify commonalities and gaps in the data. And then from that, identifying indicators that are being used by the different groups to help measure the contribution that they're making to specific objectives. And so the work aligns with the development of the population health strategy for the region, which is something I think Keith may be leading on for the health board. And as part of data management, we're exploring the possibility of creating a data lake for improving data maintenance and sharing. So that's also something that's under consideration. Turning then to the final step, step 8, which is about establishing effective performance management arrangements for the PSB. So you will know that we've been creating that management framework, performance management framework, this over the course of 23-24, and the action plan that we have had across the 8 different steps is part of that, as is the milestones and the success measures that the action plan identifies. We're also looking then, the next stage will be for the framework to incorporate some population level outcome measures, pulling on the work from step 7, as mentioned earlier. So that'll be part of the next stage of development. And the final part of that step is around developing the annual report, which is included in the pack and probably takes me nicely on to present that to the board for endorsement, if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ness. So any questions on any of the step updates, first of all? No? Okay. And so, Ness, you want board approval for?
Yes, so in the pack under agenda item 5, you've got the draft Public Service Board annual report for 23-24. So we are required to produce an annual report each year, and the draft is attached as an appendix to that report. And so at this stage, it's to share with you the draft as is, and to ask for your approval of that. With also a request for you to agree that we provide additional content via email where there are still gaps, and that the PSB statutory members are happy to sign off that report by email out of committee, and that we produce that and share it at a future PSB meeting. So the report kind of outlines the key areas that we've been looking at, much of which has just been summarised in the previous updates that you've received. We are also proposing to produce a video to accompany this annual report as a kind of different medium in which to hopefully encourage engagement and improve accessibility to reporting the work of this committee.
Okay, thank you, Ness. So first of all, any comments on the draft annual report? Is everybody content with it? Obviously, Ness has given the offer of adding any additional information via email, and we can then sign that off via email as well if you're all in agreement. Hannah?
Yeah, the report looks good. It's nice to see some examples and photos and things in there to just give it a bit more flavour, so that's nice. But just wonder if they might need a little bit of introduction of what they're about. That's it. But I'm sure that will go through the comms process as you turn this from draft to final version. It's a useful summary of what you've all been doing.
Thank you, Hannah. That's very positive. Ness, did you want to respond on the introduction to those?
Happy to take that comment and look at it. So do you mean, Hannah, under each of the steps, just a brief introduction?
A brief introduction, and then there's some lovely photos on like page 17 and 18, but it'd be nice to have a bit of context of what, a bit more context of what they are, or maybe to just make it a bit more visual throughout it, so it makes it alive.
Yeah.
And it's that link between what all these plans and things mean in terms of delivery to people in Swansea as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So everybody's happy to approve that we take this offline to approve the final version. We're all okay with that? Okay, thank you, Ness. So that takes us on then to the next item, which is the Public Service Board scrutiny meeting, which we've been invited to on the 14th of May. And I understand you're going to give a verbal update on this report, Ness.
Yes, thanks, Chair. It was really just to ensure Public Service Board partners were aware that we were going to scrutiny. It'll be yourself, Andrea, and Roger, I assume, who will be attending committee. And just to suggest that the information that we share with committee is the draft annual report, recognising that it is still in draft, and the 24-25 draft action plan, which is the next item on the agenda. And just to check, Public Service Board colleagues are happy that those are the documents that we will be sharing, and really any suggestions of any other information we may wish to share with the committee at this time.
Okay, thanks, Ness. And I think Karen will correct me, but I'm sure you've attended one of the scrutiny meetings in the past, Karen, as well.
I'm not sure I have actually, Chair.
It's usually me and Roger as chair and vice chair, but we look forward to attending, giving our regular update to scrutiny on the PSB progress. So thank you for that.
I'm happy to attend if you want me to, though. So yeah.
I think the offer is there. If partners do wish to attend, you'd be more than welcome. But it's not something that is mandatory as such. So if you want to attend, please feel free to attend as well. I think Leanne could probably circulate the joining instructions for that. So that takes us on then to the draft action plan list for 24-25. And I'm sure that you want to invite step leads in to give updates regarding their steps if they wish. Ness?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So on this, so we've been out to strategic leads, given that we are at the start of this financial year, and so have invited strategic leads to put forward proposals for the action plan for 24-25, and this is the contributions that we have received to date, so presented here for approval by the committee or comments, and then that will form the basis of our plan for the year that we will then monitor and report against. So I guess if I can ask each strategic lead just to highlight, we don't need to go through every single milestone, but just to sort of highlight the two key actions for the year, and any kind of issues, challenges that may be associated with those that they feel that the committee ought to be aware of.
Okay, thank you, Ness. So we'll go through the list again in the usual order. So I'll come to you first, Karen. Is there anything you want to add?
I suppose just to highlight to members that the early years space is quite complex and involves a huge range of partners across early years, maternity, really importantly our third sector partners as well. And as the health board is the strategic lead for this, obviously this approach covers the Swansea Bay footprint. So this step is a little bit different to some of the other steps, which is just for Swansea local authority area. Obviously this step covers and needs working across the two PSBs, which makes it more complex as well. And I think, as you can see, and I mentioned it earlier, the main thing we want to do next year, they've been drafted, is to agree this set of regional principles for early years that is signed off by all agencies. We were progressing this last year, and I did report to this board But then we understood that Neath Port Talbot were taking a slightly different approach. We've had to work to bring that back in line. They have developed their own early years strategy. That's absolutely fine, up to them. But what they have agreed to now, as has this sort of board in principle, that we will have an early years set of principles, which we will want to bring back to all partners and then through this board to sign off in September. So that will then drive one multi-agency action plan for early years and maternity across the region. And I think that's going to be an important step in getting us on a journey of driving forward a number of key actions across the health board footprint. So we'll have clear governance then that we've already started to put in place this year through our regional integration group, which is operational and strategic leads. So that will support and drive the delivery. So I think we're getting towards a really good place in that. So yeah, looking for PSB to sign that off today. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Karen. No questions on Karen's update. So we'll go to step 2, back to you, Ness, for the human rights update.
Thank you. So in 2024-25, we're proposing to do two things. The first is focusing on the commitments that PSB partners have made in our individual human rights plans. And so for the fire service, that means frontline training for frontline staff in signposting and information sharing. For the voluntary sector, it means seeking funding to expand the safeguarding offer for the vulnerable children and families priority. And for the health board, it means embedding a human rights approach in the health board strategic equality plan. And likewise, as I said earlier, we're doing a similar thing within the council. So the second key action for 24-25 is around raising awareness and monitoring the impact of our human rights city work. And to do that through, in terms of raising awareness through a biannual newsletter, and in terms of measuring impact through an annual survey and the stakeholder panel that I mentioned earlier. And that by the end of the year should give us some good data around the impact that the actions we're taking across the partnership are having in terms of raising awareness of human rights within the city.
Thank you, Ness. No questions on Ness's update? No. Okay, so we'll go to step 3, and I think, Lester, you're covering for Howell today. Any updates on the future plan?
My apologies. No, there are no updates today.
Okay, thank you, Lester. So step 4, we'll come to Peter.
Yeah, thank you. So the Community Safety Village will be back up and running in City Centre on June the 1st. So again, if partners can engage with colleagues within fire service to get representation there, that'd be very welcome. And then on November the 20th in the Swansea.com Stadium, there's going to be hosted again a multi-agency targeted prevention working day there, which we're aiming to get in and around not only practitioners but also senior middle managers in to allow the ideas and themes that are developed during the working morning to be embedded then perhaps within working practices later on, and support management teams in and around that. There is a saving the date which will come out from the service very, very shortly. We're just waiting for a couple of fine details of 1 or 2 partners before we can send that out. So yeah, that'll be coming into our diary management quite shortly.
That's great. Thank you, Peter. No questions on that update, but a lot of positive nods in the virtual room for that update. Thank you. So I come to you, Mark, for step 5.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Not a huge amount to draw attention to, other than to say that the main focus of the work for step 5 in this year will be co-creation of a cultural strategy, and it's going to go through a various drafting and consultation phases before completion, targeted at the end of this calendar year. There's also some changes planned in the way that Sport Wales is governed, and how it delivers its funding as well, through to various sort of grassroots activities, and how they aim to encourage participation and improve well-being. So we'll be helping deliver some actions around that to ensure, I suppose, maximum effectiveness. So nothing further to draw attention to on step 5. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. And then again, the final 3 steps, Ness, if you want to give any further updates regarding next year's plan.
Thank you, Chair. So I think the key point I want to make on these 3 steps is that they are around governance. So to a certain extent, they're sort of task and finish pieces of work. When we identified them last year, they're about sort of getting our governance house in order, if you like. So the first one, plan step 6, the action for this year is to implement the findings of that mapping exercise. And that's specifically the milestone is to produce a report for the PSB on some changes that we propose to our PSB governance arising from what we've learnt from that exercise. And the second proposal is for you as chair to write to the chairs of the other strategic partners within the region to share our learning from that exercise. So once those 2 actions are complete, which should be done by October, I think we can potentially close this step as having achieved its objective. The next step, step 7, probably has a longer lifespan, which is to improve data quality and accessibility across the Swansea Bay region. And in terms of 24-25, we're aiming to work with partners and link in with national developments to try and develop a digital data portal for partnerships across the region, and that involves exploring feasibility of us piggybacking on work that's being undertaken at a national level by Data Cymru to develop a national PSB data portal. So that's going to be a key piece of work, and I guess because it's linked to a national initiative, the timing of that will be linked to the progress that national project makes. And then the final step is step 8, to develop Swansea's performance management arrangements. And I think, again, once we have completed this final task in 24-25, this step also can potentially be closed as having been completed, as we will have as a PSB a performance management framework in place. So the final action here is to establish mechanisms to enable PSB population level outcome measures to be reported to the PSB. So that's building on the data gathering work that was undertaken in step 7 in 23-24. And that work, the aim is to complete that by October 2024, Chair.
That's great. Thank you, Ness. Any further comments on the 24-25 draft action plan, Hannah?
Yeah, just had a final question, and it's just because I'm new to this, about how it sounds really interesting to have the population level data and how that will be intersected across the other aims that there are to be able to give live data on outcomes. Is it just a point of clarity? I'm just a bit confused. Is that looking at the outcomes across this wellbeing plan, whether they be early years or climate change, and then mapping against that, using those as outcomes to be able to understand the impact on actual people?
Sort of. So the exercise that's been done under step 7 was to look at the population indicators that are being used across the partnerships, and to say which ones of those might be really good proxies for measuring population outcomes of the work that the PSB are doing. And so from that, being able to say, can we agree a set that actually already links to indicators that are being measured and monitored elsewhere, because it's very hard for the PSB to show its direct causal impact and individual organisations within it. So it's about trying to, across the region, have a sensible, reasonable set of outcome indicators that are relevant to not just to the partnership, but also to individuals within individual organisations within it.
Thanks for the clarity.
Thank you, Ness. Okay, so I can't see anyone else indicating on this particular item. So we'll move on to the agenda item to talk about future agenda items, and I'll open it up to the virtual room. Does anyone have any ideas that they'd like to feed into future agendas today? Go to Ness.
Sorry, Chair, just for the minutes, can we just confirm that people are happy to sign off that action plan as the action plan for 24-25
Yeah.
before we move on?
Are we all okay with that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
I've got Chris Truscott. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. So I've not said a lot in these meetings previously, but I finally found something that I might want to raise just for some initial views, I guess. So very quickly, I had the privilege of going and sitting in the Safer Swansea Partnership strategic meeting a couple of weeks ago, which is chaired jointly by the local authority and one of my superintendents in the police, and was primarily around some concerns I had about the visibility of the community safety partnership across Swansea. That's not to say that there isn't a whole lot of good work going on, because there absolutely is in it. But there are a couple of things that came out of that meeting in terms of tasks, which I thought were just worthwhile raising in this forum, and then gauge some interest as to whether or not it's something that members would like a bit more of a brief on in the coming months. So there were two things from there. One was probably more of a straightforward one, which is a review of the membership in terms of reference, to make sure that we've got a truly collaborative approach across the partnership. I think that's quite dated, I think about 8 years ago, so let's do a refresh. But the second one, which the leader, chief exec, and the cabinet member for community safety have had an initial conversation, was around the scoping of a co-located community safety partnership, which Swansea doesn't have, beyond police and probably a little bit around antisocial behaviour, so broadening out more widely across the partnership landscape in community safety to try and create a co-located hub which is better able to co-produce together across the community safety priorities for Swansea. I think, having listened to today's update in the meeting, that piece of work is quite sizable and significant, albeit there seems to be some good support behind it, but may or may not fit into the action plan around step 4, which talks about safer communities, and whether or not there's a view as to we would want to put that as a key piece of work on behalf of the PSB to improve the visibility and the coordination of the CSP across Swansea. I guess my ask, was just an initial view on that, and then if people were content, perhaps a bit more of a detailed brief in the next PSB about the progress that the team have made and what the scope of the exercise looks like, and what we think in principle it may look like, not just on paper, but in actual practice as well.
Thank you, Chris. Actually, it's timely, I think, because we were discussing this at a Cabinet Away Day today around the governance and where Swansea Safer Partnership fits in terms of Public Service Board. And it was discussed today that we felt that because there's a joint Public Service Board which covers Swansea Bay region between us and Neath and Batalbert, that is probably more relevant for Safer Swansea Partnership to feed in to that body as opposed to this board which is just covering Swansea. So I'm going to look to Ness for some guidance, whether that doesn't mean that we can't still connect with what you're talking about in terms of our step 4, because it is very relevant. So I'm going to ask Ness to come in on this as well.
Yeah, thanks. I think the discussion earlier was about the fact that the joint work that we do with Neath Batalbert PSB is very much focused on the area planning board work, and whether or not it was just felt like a more natural fit to have community safety partnership aligning to that agenda rather than to the steps within the PSB. But having said that, under step 4, as you say, that one about community involvement, you can see a natural link. So I think it can fit under either. as a piece of work, but in terms of the sort of formal governance, does the partnership, forgive me for not knowing this, is it limited just to Swansea, or does the partnership extend to Neath Talbot as well? Is it a regional partnership?
No, it's one Swansea and then one Neath Talbot. I suppose my only reflection on what's been said is that Neath Talbot are significantly ahead of Swansea in terms of their community safety arrangements, i.e. I mean by that they've got a co-located community safety hub.
Right.
So there's probably some work to do in isolation as an authority from the Swansea side first before we try and link the two up. Otherwise we've got a little bit of apples and pears, I suppose. But at a point in the future, I absolutely agree, because it should be done on a more regional basis, because the issues and the priorities are very similar across both partnerships.
Yeah. So, sorry, did you want to bring others in before I come back, Andrea?
Yeah, I've got Deanne and then Daniel.
Yeah, just to support what Chris said there, really. I mean, I think the reporting into the Joint Public Service Board on issues such as substance use and the critical incident that was identified a couple of years ago makes absolute sense. But in reference to this particular issue around co-location, that is distinct to this local authority, and therefore there should be a line of sight in some way, shape or form via this board, I think.
Thanks, Deanne. Daniel?
Hi Chair, Dan Jones. I am the Head of Community Safety for the Police and Crime Commissioner. Conscious we're in a pre-election period and there is an election next week, so this is more around governance for Police and Crime Commissioners in general rather than anything to do with local arrangements. There is an ongoing community safety review by UK government in relation to responsibilities of community safety partners and what potential role Police and Crime Commissioners may have in that space in future. The arrangements are slightly different in Wales to what they would be in England because of the role of the PSBs and the reflection of the fact that community safety partnerships report up to the public service boards as per Wales arrangement. So just mindful that there might be some changes on the back of those that review and those recommendations going forward that might give public service boards in Wales more of a defined role and responsibility in that community safety space. So just putting that out there, that might be something that we need to keep an eye on.
Thanks, Dan. So from what I'm hearing, we would use this public service board for the time being because it's the most appropriate board in terms of timing, and the alignment is not there at the moment with Neath Talbot, so it wouldn't work if we did it immediately. But I guess this is something which we could keep under review, and if we do get to a point where we've established the things that we need to, there's a discussion to be had then as to whether that could come in future to a joint public service board. But at this point, we're not ready for it yet. Ness?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing too. And I think, I guess because Roger's not here today, we just need to have a discussion with Roger about step 4, because that's where it would sit, and to work out kind of what the implications of that are for us ensuring that we've included it appropriately within the action plan and that it aligns with the objective for step 4. So a little bit of work to do in the background, but I think it's something which we can certainly achieve before our next meeting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thanks, Ness. Dan?
Yeah, just lastly, there are examples of there being joint community safety boards across South Wales. We've had Cwmtaff, as in RCT and Merthyr, working together in that community safety space for a number of years, and Bridgend currently in discussions about joining that. The Public Service Board in Cwmtaff, Bro Morgannwg does work across the 3 local authority areas that matches the health footprint. So there is a slightly different set of arrangements there where the Community Safety Board reports up to the Public Service Board, but they're already working in that joint space. Well, of course, you've got, operating community safety partnerships are operating slightly separately. So that might be a conversation about the working jointly. And I'm not taken away from the fact that, they've got their own issues in each local area. It might be simpler for the the police from a BCU perspective. I'm sure Deanne would appreciate a joint partnership in community safety across the provision area. And you know, Health would as well, operating across Swansea Bay and East Talbot. But from a year and now, it's something that we might be able to learn from Cwmtaf if conversations may be in that space going forward.
Thank you, Dan. That's really helpful, and appreciate you raising it, Chris. So we will monitor that in terms of future agenda item, but as Nessa said, we'll have those conversations in the background as well as to how you can link in with step 4, which does seem the right fit. So appreciate you raising that. Any other ideas for any future agenda items from any other partners? Ness?
Thanks, Chair. I was just wondering whether the way in which we've kind of operated in the last year is that we have this sort of brief update from each step at every meeting, but maybe we could have a presentation from one step, which is a bit more involved as to kind of what progress they've made, and giving us a bit more of the flesh on the bones of what's been achieved and what the impact is, you know, the step is having. So we've got 8 steps, so you know, that's potentially you could look at doing 1 or 2 at each meeting, just to give a bit more depth to the discussion, because otherwise it does feel that we're sort of going through the motions a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Ness. I'd open it up to members for your views on that suggestion. Are we all happy with that? It would be interesting, I think, to go into things with a bit more of a deeper dive. Okay, great. Thank you, Ness. Okay, so all I will say is, you know, the agenda for Public Service Board is not just council-led as such, it's us as partners. So if there are any suggestions that you think of in the meantime, please feel free to feed those in to Leanne to include on future agendas. Ness?
Sorry, Chair. I just remembered there was one on the forward programme which was around GP clusters, an update on GP clusters, and it would be interesting to have that presentation.
It would, if the timing is right. I know Leanne is making notes. Perhaps we could hopefully include that in our next meeting. Thank you for the reminder, Ness. That's been on the back burner for quite some time now, so it'd be good to see that come forward. Okay, so that leaves us with a request from Middle West Wales Fire and Rescue Service. I know, Peter, you wanted to raise about the changes to the way in which the service responds to false fire alarms, so over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I really appreciate it, and I'll only take a minute or two of everybody's time. But as of July the 1st, the service is going to change the way in which it responds to automatic fire detection, which goes off in commercial premises, then goes through a remote receiving centre, which is called an ARC, and then ends up in our fire control. And this will impact different organisations in different manners. We have written out to local authorities, health boards, and large educational establishments to make them aware of this change. And essentially, if the alarm goes off in a commercial premises at the moment, such as a hotel or a council building, then that would automatically trigger through the fire service, and we would attend. That line will be broken from July the 1st, and it will be 999 calls only. There are some exceptions to that. Certainly all domestic premises, we will still be attending them, and that will extend through to areas, for example, such as NHS accommodation, also then boarding schools and student accommodation, so they'll be factored in as residential, but that won't include hospitals, for example. We will still attend all care homes and nursing homes, and we'll also still attend, as a direct link, any commercial premises that has got a business fire safety enforcement or prohibition notice against it, recognising significant business fire safety challenges within that property. If you visit the website, there's a small video there. Correspondence has gone out to lots of organisations, but just given the timing of this meeting, and I know Amy is going to try and populate the chat now with a small leaflet. It's got a QR code on it as well. there is an opportunity via our website or via myself or Roger to speak to the head of business fire safety. But I know that he's already done that with lots of organisations. So just to make everybody aware in terms of that timeline, and for them to for people to get their organisations ready for that change. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Peter. And I think from a council perspective, it would be beneficial if Roger did have the time, or yourself, to come and talk to us in more depth about the implications of that change. That would be welcomed, I'm sure. Any questions for Peter on this item? No, thank you for the update. And so comes to our final item, which is the next meeting date, which is the 18th of July 24. Ness?
Sorry, Chair, I was just wondering, under any other business, I think Karen wanted to raise something about shaping places.
Oh, apologies, I've got a different lineup of agenda in front of me. Feel free to come in, Karen, on with your other business.
No, thanks. No, don't apologise. I only emailed Nest shortly before the meeting to just check it was appropriate to raise it. At the last meeting, Jennifer Davis updated us on the All Wales Shaping Places programme, which is being led by the Health Foundation, and it's aimed at senior leadership in the PSBs, trying to get people to start to think in that systems way, as we need to do across all the areas that we're involved in. And the invite was then followed to each PSB to have mainly the leads, I suppose, people in the group today, to nominate themselves to take part in that programme. I know that I was one of the nominations for Swansea, but Jennifer, in her role as sort of overseeing some of that national work, has had an update that we are short of taking up our 5 places in Swansea PSB. So we've had some more information through, because I think when we sent it out originally, there probably wasn't much information for people to, but it's part of a programme that will go on for about a year. They want leaders to be part of shaping some themes relevant to PSB work. So I suppose she wanted me to raise it again today because she couldn't be here. I can send it back through to you, Ness, possibly, and we might want to ask partners if they could, consider. It looks like it's a couple of days event coming up in June, and then maybe some ongoing stuff where we're working on some key themes across Wales relevant to PSB. So yeah, we haven't got the nominations that they have offered us, I suppose. So it's going around maybe one more loop and seeing if we want to take advantage of that opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Karen. No one indicating to come in further on that, but appreciate that. So the next meeting date is the 18th of July 2024. I'm sure we will meet in between these statutory meetings, but thank you for your time, thank you for your contributions today, and all the work that you're doing on the steps as well. Chris, could I ask you just to stay on after the meeting's concluded, if that's okay, just for a few minutes? Thank you all very much for attending today, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
all.
bye.
Bye.